To continue now our discussion, I would like to introduce maybe again, or you introduce yourself, I would say. We go around, you've heard already Martin, except Martin Buchholz. So Martin Buchholz, we work quite a lot of time together, and this watergy concept of one prototype we constructed in Berlin is quite near to what we discussed at the zero emission concept. So to circle everything in one building, not just energy and water, so we can recycle water by the recondensation process of evaporated water by plants in a greenhouse in front. We have established a salt solution system, but this we can explain. Maybe as a first question for you, what's your dream of the buildings of the future, Martin?
Okay. Of course, this relates a lot to what Marco already has been mentioning. For me, the zero emission building is covered with a transparent roof. So the greenhouse is a part of it, not only as a source of food or as urban horticulture or so, but also as a source of thermal energy, in a way that we use the solar energy into the building and to transfer this energy into the building, either directly by drying the air or indirectly by just storing heat and then when we need the heat, bringing it to the building. But it's more than this, it's related to the idea of closed loop. That means in the presentation of Mr. Warren, we saw that the greywater, the most expensive thing about greywater cleaning is to remove the phosphorus and the nitrogen, but these are the plant minerals we need, so it makes most sense to give it to the crops directly. And this is a part of the vision. Another part of the vision is that we will of course not only look at the building but also at the interaction, so what makes sense to do within the building and what makes sense to interact with the neighborhood or with the city. And for that, I think just to tell some maybe things we have not heard today, we think about kind of desiccant network as an additional transfer of energy. That means we can use all kind of waste heat in the city for the regeneration of desiccant, and we can use all kind of humid air to take up humidity into a desiccant and can generate heat by that, or can generate cool by that, just by drying air. Drying of air is also a big portion of cooling strategies. Maybe to relate to the last lecture of Mr. Piglo, I would also like to enhance the idea of terra preta. I think the solid waste, maybe all the biological material we don't use, should be converted to durable material. I think it's not a good idea to burn it. Maybe even not to transfer to biogas. Maybe we can discuss this. But this is already a very high form of carbon, and we should not degrade it, but we should use it as a storage of water and storage of nutrients, and that's maybe the key to a new level of sustainability, which is not a closed-loop society, but a growing idea of a growth to increase the capacity of a city, like wings of a tree which grow into the surface of, let's say, a land with bad soils transferred into a land of good soils which are around the city. Maybe that's it for the first.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I will give the round just one word and then we open it for the public for discussions. If we are now looking into the landscapes, Martin Künzlen, so what is your opinion after 30 years of working in ecological construction? If we are now looking the existing construction, then architects we educate here at the university are always trying, if they escape from university, to create at least 800-meter tower building as high as more glass as possible. At the moment, neglecting all the questions of resources and neglecting how you might go into the floor number 130 when having no electricity maybe in 30 years. So you started already 30 years ago. The resources we are losing at the moment are 800 square kilometers every day in vegetation. We are losing 300 square kilometers every day in fertile soils. Of course, Terra Paper we should establish. You had this vision already 30 years ago, maybe some old cultures already a few hundred or 1,000 years ago, after they established that the resource efficiency was not efficient enough to survive, like you can see in a lot of former cities which you can find in the desert now. So what's your opinion? What went wrong in the past 30 years, and how should we now react to create a new development?
Well, I think it's not having no ideas or having no strategies, but getting into new kind of planning. That's not the problem, because ideas, there are so many, we heard today, there are so many proposals to use less water and etc. But my experience is that when it comes to an implementation, you figure out enemies, you never think about it. There is so much bureaucracy, you can't believe it. And there, the big companies now, they are responsible for water and energy, and they figure out, or you have to go to them and say, well, I use less water, what about the price, are you with us? No. First they are very nice now, but when it comes to the implementation, then the real fight starts. I just can tell one example. We planned building and also by the implementation with almost no water use. There was compost toilets, they had clean pond,
Constructed wetland.
Constructed wetland, and they had only fresh water for cooking and drinking. So after half a year, the company came and said, well, your water meter, there is something wrong. We will do one. Okay, so we will do one. They came 4 times, and they tried to make him guilty that he didn't use enough water, because a normal house, they know how much water it is, and he has a tenth of it, or even less. And it took us 2 or 3 years to get some sort of arrangement in the company, and that they believed that the water use is not as normal. And there are other examples now. When you start to implement things, suddenly, what I said in the beginning, you figure out enemies. So we shouldn't believe in our society. Everybody says, oh, ecology, wonderful. No, it's not. Here, everybody here knows, okay, we know it's okay, we have to do it. There is a need. But our society is so they're not open enough to help us. There are so many obstacles.
Yeah, Martin, thank you very much. If you compare it now to the energy aspect, it was like a revolution we did here in Germany. We will need that for the water supply and as well for the building material. Of course, the big companies, they have the main interest to sell their products, so to sell water and to avoid having people producing their own water quality. This happens the same in the energy sector. So my idea was we would need a so-called German Einspeisegesetz for water, that if you producing tap water, so drinking water quality out of your shit, you get more money if you feed the grid than if you would pay if you just get it out of the grid. I know this is a really fundamental question, but we have to fight, especially in the water and in the building material sector, a huge fight. So it took us in the energy sector at least 20 to 25 years. I would like now to ask the young generation. I could ask as well Catalina, there upstairs. Thanks for your support. I would like to ask you, so what is now your impression? So you gave us yesterday quite a good idea of ecological construction and you evaluated some aspects. Why are you different from the other students we are normally educating and which are leaving our university? So what do you think? What is your opinion about ecological construction? So why you are not intending to construct 404 high-rise building and an ecological building instead?
I would say that first you maybe have to look at what is actually the overall aim. So is it just to have an ecological building that corresponds to all the things that we heard these 2 days? Or what is the actual goal? So I always say actually we just want to be happy. We don't want to live in a stable home, we want to be happy. So what do we need for that? Is it everything that we think we have to have, or is it all resources, what we need for living, and do we have to supply these on an ecological way? So can we just reduce it and still be happy and have everything we need? So I always try to step back and see what do we want actually, and not just follow also the conventional ecological approach like we see here, but maybe even go further back and see what we want. Maybe I can tell a little story, because I was in Fiji and I went on a little island and there was no grid, and the people, they just had a generator that ran maybe 2 hours in the evening, and me as an environmental engineer, I thought, oh my god, the generator, diesel, zero emissions, this is so bad, they have wind, they have sun, and oh yeah, we should set up solar panels, we should make wind turbines. And we were a little group and we started to think further, and then we started. So what would happen? So the whole island would have a grid, and people could use their computers all day long. They could go on the internet, they could see what there is, the new branches would open, they would have banks, and they go to work by public transport, and so on and so on. And in the end, they would probably end up in a society like us. They would be working all day, they hate their lives, they never see their family, they don't see their children. And then you would look back and say, so what's wrong? Like, why would you do that? They're happy now, they live in their homes, they're not poor, they get the fruit out of the wood, they see their children around, they sing songs at night, they're so nice, they're so happy. So just leave these stupid generators. It doesn't compare
also went to a very remote area, and they had no generator because you really have to walk very far, so it would be very much effort to carry the diesel for the generator there. But they had, because to make the life better and happy and to give the people a chance for doing handicraft and getting somewhat income and learning for the school languages, they got, with subsidy from the government, a very small A4 solar panel with a small battery to connect just 2 bulbs to it. So, very small renewable thing, but not changing the life completely, but making the people happy. So something which is contribution to sustainable energy supply and supporting the people with the result. So they could also use it, maybe not the grid, but
yeah, great. I really enjoy you sitting here because you are old generation and really young generation and nearly old generation, I would say, something in between, and all working against mainstream, and this is really fascinating for me. We just have now to find a solution how to convince all the others outside of this room, and there are lots of architects and engineers and companies who are completely going into the other direction, how to convince them. There's one good example how we can convince them. So people are still, they are not lost. So that's why we are sitting here and working to convince them. And one aspect is of course certification, because most of them, they don't know what to do. So we need to have guidelines, and we have a certification aspect in which we can define here, which we can influence. I think some aspects from my perspective are still completely wrong in the opposite aspect indeed, but that's type of nature. I need to influence, I think, the process. That's why we are here. And what is at the moment your opinion, Annika, what should be the direction in the near future? What is the perspective? Should we make it, for example, for free, like we did in the energy aspect, that you get a guidance for certification for free in the near future? What is at the moment the handicap? Why just a few architects and engineers and developers are accepting SLEED and GNB certification system? Or are there any other circumstances which we need to change?
Interesting question, actually. Well, we do have free guidelines for sustainable buildings, actually, because the Federal Ministry for Urban Development, is published all the criteria and big guideline on the internet, so on www.nachhaltigesbauen.de, everybody can download it, and but doesn't mean the architects do it, right? So why they don't do it? Because most of the measures, well, they, how can I say this? Of course, you have more effort to do this, to make buildings sustainable through this standard. Question is it building sustainable because we make it where this standard? That's an interesting question. But the system is developed to more practical methods, because there's still some aims in there that nobody at the construction site can ever meet, requirements that are not meetable. And they're getting better and better, and more people are actually out there on the construction site come into these groups that develop the system more and more. So it becomes better to handle, and it becomes more stricter. And for that reason, it's developed in a good way, I think. we're at the very beginning. So, and windmills are a good thing to carry the idea of a sustainable building out into, can reach much more people. So I think it's a good beginning.
Thorsten, any comment?
Yes.
I'm sure.
Yes, I would like to start with a statement regarding the sustainable building tools, because they are not mandatory, but they are, you know, you asked the question why are more people using it. Because they are only used by people who want to use it as a marketing instrument. Finally, it's all about money, I think. Money and habits. So if people, and desires. So if people want something, they also pay a lot of money for it, even though it's not logical, right? So why do people buy a Porsche or a big car to go from A to B? You can also do it with a Jochen. What's the name of your car?
Dacia.
A Dacia. So very simple, very cheap. You can get it for how many euros?
4,900.
Okay. And other people pay €500,000 for a car. No? So then you ask yourself, if people spend so much money for expensive cars, why not for ecological houses? Because there is no desire, obviously. And but there could be some progress if you look, for example, at the organic food market in Germany. It was really a boom over the last years, and you ask the people if they could afford it, like I think 90% of the Germans would buy organic only. So there is some hope regarding sustainability. But coming back to the certification tool, you have these different rating systems, you have to pay money for it. So if everybody would have this certification, there would be no incentive anymore to have the certification because we're not outstanding. So that means the principle of these certification tools is that only a few buildings are certified. If it would be mandatory by law to have this sustainable building, then people have to do it, like the NF, you know, the energy efficiency, the rating system. If it's mandatory, people have to follow it. Maybe they just try to play some tricks, not invest so much to get the label, but then you really can introduce in development. And if I may recall, the presentation of you, it's the biggest problem, at least in Europe, is that we have so much existing building stock. So even if we have very high requirements for new buildings, and even if like EGLB cladding would be mandatory, we have a building renewal rate in Europe of less than 1% per year. So it would take like more than 100 years to replace all the buildings, theoretically, even practically even longer. So that means that these government requirements have to target also the existing building stock, or that there are financial incentives. So I think these are the main drivers, like desire, that really people want something, and money.
So, well, I have to say, I'm really glad that the sustainable building standard of DNB is not mandatory because, like I said, we are still in the very beginning, and there are now some investors out there who have the money to try out these things and to give the experience to the rest of the world. So this is what's happening right now. And I think this market is developing so fast that in 10 years from now, like 80% of the criteria that we were talking about today will be standard in 10 years. So thank God it's not mandatory today, but it will be maybe in 10 years when it's growing out of its kinder shoes. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think these are really good conclusions. I have the same feeling because we tried with the Watergy concept as well to sell zero emission buildings, which is not easy to get into the market once, and it's not easy to get it running. So it's quite complicated because we have always a conflict in different aspects and goals. We have for energy, water, food production, and so on in buildings. So we need to find solutions. I don't want to add too much because I want to open now the discussions. Maybe we can collect 3, 4, 5 questions, and then we go into the next round to participate everyone. Is it okay? Yeah. Okay. Jochen. So.
You, Marco.
Yeah.
You said that you have the same idea that in future we are on the right way. So, and I tell you something. We started the work with greywater recycling and rainwater harvesting 1984. So we construct some of these treatments, and we know they are working, and they are working well, and then they are working economically. So, and now please tell me, where are the other plants? Where are the plants for rainwater harvesting in schools in Berlin? Because there was a program. We made 3 schools, maybe, or how many? 3, 4, maybe? We have more rainwater systems? Nothing. Why? Tell me.
What's the next question?
I think
Because I have nothing to say, right?
So,
Just take the microphone. Please.
It is like Martin said before. If things seems that they are working well, you get a lot of problems, for example. And so the Senate of Berlin, they are talking everywhere that we are making new projects. We are very, very innovative. But when it comes to the point that they are working, they give you a hard time if you want to do it for a second time. For example, we have our system in Block 6. That means no rainwater goes for the sewer. Evapotranspirated, and the overflow goes for infiltration. So the Berlin Water Works, they get, for example, 4,000 euros less a year. We have water recycling from greywater, and so the Berlin Water Works get about 50,000 euros less. It's not a problem for the Berlin Water Works, but they want to make sure that there is not a second project. And so the Berlin Water Works, you can read it everywhere. They earn about 140 million euros per year. No, not the Berlin Water Works, the Senate of Berlin earns about 140 million euros a year from the waterworks. And so if you are working in the Senate, they said, if there are some guys who are reducing water consumption, that means we will get less money in our budget. So we have been talking 20 years before about hygiene aspect. This is not very important. From the technical side, you can manage it, and we show it everywhere that you can manage it. It's a point of money. Yes. And they want to sell as much water as they can. And even if it is a private company or it's a more community company, they want to have the money. And they're not so much interested in ecological things as they always say. If it was different, then they would act in a different way.
But I mean, it's logical because you have to finance the infrastructures, and we have, according to the European law, we have to have like prices which cover the real cost. And as we learned for wastewater systems, the biggest part of the cost is fixed cost for the infrastructure system, and for drinking water also we have the duct network. So that means if you sell less water on a very big level, but you have still your infrastructure cost, and if your water cost, it's actually the same for the electricity for the grid. So if you consume less, of course, then you have to raise the prices. And that means, let me continue. So if you continue installing rainwater,
normally with microphone because we want to record it. And I have a different opinion, but like Erwin.
Maybe I can
Okay. but doesn't matter. Maybe we just close it and then we make the round here. So, yeah, it's.
Can I ask a question or not?
Huh?
Can I give him an answer?
Yes.
I even haven't finished.
Yeah, we just want to refer. Sorry.
Because the point is that if you have decentralized water system, it's a kind of inverse infrastructure, right? We have a centralized water system, so you have been set up centralized. We have interventions on decentralized, which affect the consumption. So because we pay the systems by quantity, we reduce the quantity, which, if it's public or private, it doesn't matter, but the costs have to be covered because the infrastructure is for all users. So we have to cover the infrastructure costs. So if we have a second infrastructure coming up, then at some point, if it's getting too powerful, it's a kind of concurrence to the existing system because you have to finance both systems. So that means if the centralized system is getting more expensive because people use less and less water, you are at some point you say we just don't need the centralized system anymore because we cannot afford the two systems.
This argument, it can't last because if you look at our society, the problem you have it all over, big society, big societies, or you have big companies now, and the market is changing. They don't sell anymore enough. What they do, they get little and they get rid of personnel, and they develop strategies. And I think also for water and for electricity, it needs strategies for the big companies. We can't say, well, their system, it has to be, or there's still money they need. If we do this, you never change things.
Maybe you don't understand me. It's more like, imagine you have one car, you have to pay one car. If you have a second car, and even though you drive not the other one, you have to pay both, right? It's not, of course, there may be companies who make profit. It's just about the logic of the system, that if you have an infrastructure of the system, you have to maintain it.
Yeah, but that's only for a while.
Yeah.
You have the two cars, you have it for a while, and after a
if
while
you
you have just one.
Yeah, that's okay, but then if you have abandoned one system, then you have to say, okay, we go for the decentralized system and we don't have the centralized anymore.
Okay, I want to follow the discussion with 4 or 5, and then we make a round. Martin as well wanted to answer, and then we go back to you. So if Thorsten disturbed, then we will throw him out. Okay.
Maybe just a personal statement. For me, this is a bit too much politics to bear. I think I have to find a personal position for that. And that's about, in the end, it's about aesthetics. You were saying, Marco, here is a round of people of different minds, but they are all against the mainstream. And I wonder sometimes, all the music in the radio, all this mainstream, which I cannot bear, how could something like the Beatles happen? And I think it was about that people don't like, they like changes, but only if the result is 100% the same, then we know. No? But only if we have some examples or some idols, I would say, who are sympathetic and which I like to follow. Then I can change my mind and can go with them. And I think in the end it's the only way to go for a certain way and to live it. And by this can show something to other people, and if it's attractive enough, people will follow. And maybe this is a bit romantic and so, but I don't believe in the power of me as a consumer. When I drive a bicycle instead of a car, bicycle, I like it, but I'm not demonstrating for cycling, but it's more kind of personal aesthetics for me. I dislike big, or let's say, consume or materialism. I prefer to have it in a small way, but this is more an aesthetic statement than a moralistic or political statement, I think. Maybe it's very roughly what I wanted to say.
So what you are saying is, if a pretty man like you is driving a bicycle, this might invite imitation.
I don't know.
Yeah, it must be the attractivity of solution.
Okay, then we open, because you have been the first one, and then we open the next round for discussion.
I hope I am able to say it in English. It's not which means somewhere. I was thinking about the water question, because we just had the situation, our streets are building a new Regenauffanbecken at the end of the street. It cost many of money, and I was discussing with the Waterwerke why it's not possible to make two tubes to make rainwater go out, and I don't know what's wastewater. For the moment, it's a mixed system, and so each time there's too much rain, it's going into the Landwehrkanal. It's filled, and that's all. It's very expensive to build it like this. And they told me, yeah, we have to do it in the whole town. And in fact, after I thought it's very a vision, they look like this, but not in the far future, which would be important. Because we made also tests about that to retain the rainwater in the courtyard would not be enough that there's so much water. But I think it was more about, and they told me also that in the structure of the administration, that's very fixed, there's no movements. So it's difficult to change also the thinking about it. And that's, I think it's very sad, because they are good ideas, but it's not possible to make them possible. And perhaps you know from other countries solutions how it was resolved, this problem, to make change structures who are very fixed. Verstehen, was I mean? Also wie man so feste Strukturen auch das ändern kann.
Okay, Harald, I think Harald, you want to contribute? It was you?
Just had to remind myself what I was wanting to say. It was about the structures and how to, it's also something during what you said, it's how can structures which have been established 100 years ago and structures which have to be there for 50, 60, 70 years can be changed. And if there is a pressure to be changed, and I think there's no real pressure at the moment. The example of what 108 showed that there was something done, or something positive done in the 80s. It looks nice, but it's only a few people who adapted to that, even it was nice, and that's a nice area, nice surrounding. Changing the structure, I think it's hard to change if you don't have the pressure. And if you want to change it, you have to change the structures particularly in some areas, because then it makes sense to structure. You don't have, I would agree with Thorsten, you don't have to maintain other structures, what you have in the private sector and then in the public sector. So it would be wise if you have a change in the public service. Changing the structure in a special area we are taking care of. And there's, I'm interested in this project in Hamburg. Hamburg is doing some, Hamburg Waterworks is supporting and testing a new structure of drainage system for wastewater and rainwater. And I'm interested how this works and how this could be something for the future. But adapting this to the existing structures is quite hard, and for such a big company, it's not so easy to change this way. So there have to be other pressures. Let's say it's the energy, the water is also too cheap. It should be more expensive. And the other people who complain it's too expensive. Perhaps many people have to disconnect, and water is expensive, and yes, there will be a change.
Okay, I lost a little bit the track. Who was the next bit? Yeah, and over there. Heiko, as well, you have some comments?
Actually, I don't think that it's so difficult to change. I mean, if you look around what happened in Berlin the last, 25 years since the fall of the wall, I mean, a lot of things changed within, a couple of years. And if you look, for example, at this urban farming movement, I mean, it just happened. There are creative people, in fact, who did the change. And it was not the government, it was not a bottom-up, a top-down change, it was a bottom-up change. And it kind of links up what Martin said. I think what is important is to take these people for serious and don't put more obstacles in their way because they pick up the themes which are important right now in the 21st century. And they link it with happiness, with quality of life, other issues. And for me, it's interesting to watch what happens now, especially in Berlin. For example, Tempelhof. I mean, they made a lot of studies financed by the Senate, and they sell Berlin in a way, being a happy city, a creative city. But on the other hand, they right now, I mean, we don't hear it a lot, but on the other hand, now they discuss to build up the whole area, I mean, or at least the edges, to make new housing space around Tempelhof. And what do? They bulldoze all these urban farmers which are there for more than 100 years. I mean, they don't, so I think we should look at the old, old structures. We have old social culture we have in the city, and the new, and how we can link up to this, and how, to really give them power, give them space to talk, to communicate, and take them for serious.
Okay, and then,
only a little comment from me. I think it's very important that we have also our own experience. A special example I use since 5 years, dry separation toilet. And if I must put my urine in drink water, I know it and I don't want to do it. And so if more people have the experience that it's possible, very simple to change systems, you are more motivated to do it. And it's also, if you ask why we have our, under this conditions, zero-emission projects in Germany. We have zero-emission cities and zero-emission communities. Then this is also a question of economy, because if people have not enough money, they think about how can they change the conditions. And it's so simple to earn also money if you think more in systems structures and see what you waste and how often you must pay for your food and so on. So I think we must start also in the universities, in the schools, so people have experience with well-designed systems.
True, we need to convince the people. I'm still taking my shower even in winter time outside in the garden because I know evapotranspiration is missing, so I need to put every drop of water back into the atmosphere, but it will be hard to convince people for that.
I would just like to add a good example, I think, which is going on now in London. Because there is a tender open, they have for rainfall they have a channel. And they found out that this channel is not sufficient anymore, so they have to construct a more bigger channel for rainwater. And now it's a tender, and the idea is that with greenery, with green roofs, all this green application, maybe they can reduce the size of this channel. So this means that there was a lot of good practices that this even come to the mind that they could reduce the size of the channel by using greenery. So So I think that's a good and optimistic way. So this means it was enough done already that this comes to maybe an idea. Maybe they will not win, but there is a high tendency to do that. So I think we just have to keep on doing that and not to lose hope. Thank you.
I would like you to come back now. Comment. Only one sentence. Just a final, yeah? We make now a final round.
Because
Maybe Thorsten is starting.
Because the city of Rotterdam, they even due to, because it's public, the infrastructure, and they have mixed sewer system, and due to change of rainfall, they have the same concept, and they have since years, a big green roof program, so they even pay incentives to house owners to install green roofs, to save money on remodeling of the centralized infrastructure.
Okay. Final round.
Well, I think the overall problem that we're talking about, it's not about technical or scientific problems. It's actually just a political framework that lacks all these policies that support technologies like that. And once we have a framework that puts the right incentives to invest in such technologies, the whole process will keep running by itself, and even not ecologic people will start to invest in that because they can see that there are benefits from it. And I often have this discussion with people, and they say, even from my study, they say, oh, people are too lazy, they don't want to do that, it's too much of an effort. Yeah, you can't change mankind, it's just the way it is. And then I always say, well, I think you can. I think people are enough stupid that you can change them. You just have to set the right framework and put incentives, and then they automatically will change the way of behavior, and they won't even notice. So, yeah. So if you have the option, you want to build a building, and you see that the ecological building is much cheaper than the conventional building, it's stupid not to go for that. And they will go for the ecological building, and at the same time they are convinced of it because they decide for it and nobody told them to do that. So I think to put incentives, that's the right way to go, and not to tell people what to do or not to do, because I think that makes them mad, and then they will start to fight against all these things. But whenever they get the feeling that they made the choice, they will support it.
Martin.
Well, I had two experiences. The one side is very bad, the other side is very good. And what I told before, the fight with bureaucracies, that's the best side. And the good side is cooperation with people, with owners, with inhabitants, with tenants. And because of this experience, I think I want to go on to be an ecological architect, and there is no doubt about it. And but I still see the ecological architects are a minority, and all the others around us are non-ecological architects. That's especially also in the architect organization, Architektenkammer, and when we once were discussing in the Architektenkammer, in the official place, we were called Müsli architects. And I don't know the expression in English. Serial architect. Okay. That's what I am. So, and I will stay with it, and so I accepted it. But I can't change society. I know I can't do that, and you can do it in a very close extra society and it's fun, and I do it with energy, but there's also the bad side.
Thank you. Yes, luckily we can have individual freedom. Everybody can do whatever he wants, more or less.
You maybe?
No, but I mean, coming back maybe to the zero emission approach. Our goal in the project is to create a framework for zero emission buildings. So to make people happy that they accept the sustainable technology and the sustainable buildings we think about. Very important. Everybody wants to be happy. Then we saw on the slide of Holger König, who is not here anymore, I think, but he had this nice calculation that you can, if you plan the building in a proper way, then you can save during the lifetime of the building the additional cost. If you calculate an energy rise of plus 4%, but you didn't calculate the interest of the money if you go to the bank and you need your money to do the investment. I expect if you would have calculated the interest, the payback period would be much longer because you have to pay interest every year of certain, currently it's not so much, but maybe 4 to 5%. So if you don't have the cash money, you have to pay the interest. That means that ecological building, if we do more, we have to pay more. It's more expensive. So that means the point of incentives, I think, is very, very crucial. And in our project application, which everybody of our project partners should have read, we also said that we want to achieve the building without additional cost because we save also on central infrastructures, because we say we want to have decentralized infrastructure integrated into the zero emission building approach. We have a colleague from Canada here. She was involved in Dockside Green in Victoria, and that's a new urban development, top-down development with quite decentralized infrastructure, and the developers have chosen for the decentralized infrastructure due to economical reasons, right? Because it was cheaper than connecting to the centralized system, because they save in conventional infrastructure. So I think this is very, very crucial, and this is somehow following up my statement with the double infrastructures. Driving 2 cars, then you have to pay both. So this is, if you ask me, a very crucial point, and we can, in our framework, also contribute to the public discussion about the sense and nonsense of centralized infrastructure and how our approach can contribute to strategies how to partly, stepwise rebuild the existing infrastructure systems to more smart and sustainable infrastructures. Thank you.
Well, first I would like to link to your lifecycle costing payoff argument. The lifecycle costing method doesn't have the power actually to give you a cost forecast, because operation costs will strongly depend on like how good the winter is, how good is the behavior of the users inside the building, like always opening the window and have like.
I referred to the presentation of Holger König,
yeah,
who did that.
I saw it, but it's not a forecast, not the cost forecast, not the real cost forecast, because you're not able to forecast the operation costs. It's not possible.
Of course he did it, and he said also that there's an energy cost rise per year of plus 4%.
You can't really like predict the heating costs.
Of course you do nothing else if you do like the energy certification of your building. You do a forecast. You calculate, you simulate the energy consumption.
You get an idea of like the cost level cost forecast. It sure doesn't have to fly computers, actually. It's just, and if you use the same method and simulate the same scenarios, different buildings, you can compare them, but it's not the forecast. But anyway, I think that success of instruments and technologies is combined to information, to informate people, to sense people, and to give them the idea of what is happening, to background information, and like transparency. Transparency is the new dream to make it successful, and yeah, that's it.
Okay. Maybe from my side, a final comment on strategies of change. So there is an old slogan, think global, act local, but I think for an engineer it is a very bad slogan. So I think the idea of going to other places is of a big power. And now this round here, we have people from Korea and from Istanbul, for example, and there we have other water problems. And Marco and me, we went in another project, we drove with a hired car through the greenhouse area of Agadir in Morocco. This place where water completely disappeared, and there almost 1 million of people lose their foundation of life and of work. And if we really are able to make a little proposal there for another system, that could be very powerful and could, I think there's a real chance of making changes. And in general, I think that not every new technology will arrange now from the old industrialized countries, but by this force of, let's say, the mega cities or so, these places will have to invent their own solutions, and maybe they will spread over to us finally, and are cheaper and more effective than our systems. So, well, that's about it. Maybe a final comment on the water channel in London. We have also growing groundwater now in the center of Berlin.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be very nice to have a big program on irrigating every roof and every park site in the center now. That would be very cheap compared to the damage now is done by the rising of the water into the cellars. Maybe that could be a new common project for this group. Marco, your final.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But we increase still the groundwater recharge by infiltration, so we need to convert to evaporation because that's what's missing. That's my, final remarks. So let's try evaporate everything. And this is one of the final recommendations. We need to work on zero emission buildings and on certification because it's still not in mind. There are hundreds of parameters which are still not in mind, but which have already been developed and experienced from projects in the past, and I think we need to collect them. So there are lots of solutions which have been already developed, lots of experience, and sometimes it gets lost. Lost with people and being involved in these projects, like we lost, for example, Jochen in the past. Now he comes back to the rainwater aspect after he experienced beer production. I hope you get some ideas of the whole aspect or part of the aspect of zero emission buildings. It's a complicated approach, but I think we will get it. So thank you very much for participating, and I hope you enjoyed our zero emission conference. Thanks.